It was before anyone woke up, but one voice answered and said, "Sitting, we're up." And sitting went on, called the adhan, and proceeded to pray. The father may have been there. However, after the prayer, it was time to wake us up, and because we did not make it, we all got whooped. We were woken up by the whoop. I do not recall complete and aftermath of us going into the Jangokai, or the classroom, which was still situated right there in the back garden of the compound. I do not recall such taking place, but I know that we all got woken up with a whooping. Now, what I do recall is that later on Sitting brought it up. And when Sitting brought it up, another said that it was Dudugay who said, "Sitting, we are up," when you knocked. And that angered Sitting, and therefore Sitting went on to that individual and then started whooping us all over again. Well, there was another instance also. Notoriously, interestingly, Dudugay starts it off because at least until then we did not know what our fate was going to be. I want to backtrack on the fact that yes, he started it off with the voices because it was his voice that would lead to our whooping. However, it was my deed that would lead to the situation. And again, the older brothers had instituted us always having on our shoes, or else they found justification in getting us whooped. Now, if they were just, they would not necessarily whoop us themselves. They would pass it on to Sitting and make sure we got whooped. And that's how this took place. We all happened to be in the forest where the rain had leveled or had raised lakes water level substantially high, and making sure that we got back on time after taking a unreasonable bath in that, showering in it. Yours truly returned without his shoes, and I was asked, "Where are your shoes?" And I actually spoke the truth, and that's how it was known that everybody went there. And then we were reported during time of prayer, interestingly so, because whatever happened, Sitting would hear about it during the time that everybody has to be at the prayer. Prayer is 5 times a day. Anyone that you miss, you're going to get your butt whooped. This happened to be reported to Sitting in the afternoon, right after the noon prayer, or the afternoon prayer, rather. So we can say right after the second prayer of the day. And Sitting said, "Oh, really? So when it's time for you all to have class, you're going to get your tails whooped for that, all of you." So everybody is supposed to get their butt whooped. Everybody knows that. However, we try to make sure that we don't get we know we're going to get our butt whooped. That's a certain. Sitting is a man of his word. Sitting is going to whoop all of our tails. All 7, 8, 9 of us, however many. Sitting was cut out for it. Sitting, is one at that age. He's really understanding tactic, and he really does have a lot of strength. And when he takes off, sometimes he just wears a tank shirt. And us as kids, we look at Sitting and we see this big muscle, and he has something tied around, like a tight rope around one of his arms, and it even shows as if he has more muscle. So we know that's going to take place. What we do is that right after prayer or the earliest opportunity, we rush in our rooms and we try to put on as many clothes as possible. So when we do get the whooping, then we're not going to feel it under all of those layers of clothes. So, we boys, we're creative, and we rush in there and we start to do all of that. And it comes time to testing, and Dudugay says to Rashid, hit me on the back as hard as you can, because he has all these layers of clothes. Hit me on the back as hard as you can. When you hit me, I didn't feel it. You see, you hit me 3 times, because he says, hit me as hard as you can 3 times. When you hit me, I didn't really feel it, and you hit me 3 times. So when sitting is hitting me, I'm going to act like I'm crying. As he says that, we hear this voice saying, oh, Dudugay, when sitting hits you, you're going to act like you're crying. All right, all of you, let's go to the Jangu Kaipa. And that day, sitting literally made sure that everybody had whatever layers they had on, that they, made sure that they got rid of them. Almost reminds yours truly of, well, this would be the situation. It would be that low at times we would get into certain trouble, or I would find myself being responsible for some trouble, and finding a way to navigate through these troubles. Quite interesting. I feel that they made what would be coming next, because at least when it came time to practically leave, and the circumstances of that will be what we will wrap the SAS up with. When it came time to actually depart from SAS, it was the lower points that help comforting and assuring that whatever you're confronting, or whatever is next, whatever you're confronting, you'll be ready for it, because you've had some really low points. Again, maybe in the French school there was some idea of boyfriend, girlfriend, but in your actual living surroundings, just look into Africa today. You're going to see there are those who are getting married very early. Afghanistan, which became the currency, really astonishing the entire and shocking the entire world. Their currency is so advanced now, mashallah, fatabarakallah, the Islamic Emirat of Afghanistan, because the application of justice is very, very vital, at least assuring security to people, and doing the same for the economy and the financial aspect for the betterment of the entire nation, instead of just some small, top decision makers for all remaining. It's not correct, because they cannot represent, and they're going on the basis of 200-year document. It's a mess. So the point of the matter is that, yes, we had these low points with sitting, reading Arabic, writing Arabic, memorization. We were, well, at least I was, as far along to possibly, I would go as far as Al-Insan, Hal Ata Ala Al-Insan. And I know that would be my mark point, because from the next teacher that I would have after sitting Sambu, what I reach Al-Haqa and Surah Al-Jinn, which was only 3 hizb, a juz and a half. But for now, these were the highlights of Isaias, the adventure that was there, the growing up, the taking on different athletic components, the Quran that we were there for to some extent. Again, we will reinforce that Malik Amona Muhammad I did not have complete trust in what had transpired in the amount of time that we had been there. And we mentioned that she never let that point go, or she hadn't let the point go. We also want to reinstate, reiterate, rather, that the international arena, we were seeing on the news the issue of Palestine. We were seeing on the news the issue of South Africa back then in the 80s. Of course, we were waking up with the warfare between Libya and the United States. It happened where a campaign took place back then. So the worldly events did have an introduction, and we mentioned the entertainment. So we're talking, these anything from musket hounders. Anybody who understands that would be able to refer to it in this Booba, character, all the way until something, completely out of character, like a James Bond, and all of the insane nudity that it came with. There were, again, various moments which, we would reflect back upon, and yes, corporal punishment was very, very much so instituted, and even until today, many who grew up in Senegal, compared to those who grew up in Gambia, or really in the United States, you're talking a fight between Jogufal and Khadim. This was the first fight we witnessed, and then from there we knew we were going to be fighting for real. Because fights in Africa, you are doing a lot of grappling on top of the fact that blows are being thrown, and the grappling, it's always about the one who puts the other opponent on the ground. And the problem is that, unlike the ground here where it's concrete, it's all sand over there. So if you manage to get your opponent down on the ground in the right manner, then you can put sand all over them, inside of their mouth, inside of their nose, and they plead. So that means that you clearly have won. So it's really brutal. You will see a match between two, which is difficult to see now in America. If one loses, they go back and they get to 22. But the point of the matter is we were safe from that, and here it was about having fights. Our fights would last 30, 40 minutes, 1 hour, where you and your component are going, at it. It was basically our very first impression when we saw these two going at it. They had to have been at it for at least 5 to 10 minutes. The older and younger brother, exact immediate ones, and they are throwing blows as if they were lions. The way they're standing, just throwing and going at each other, just on the ground. They were really, 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 really good, going at it, putting sand on each other, then turning around, getting punched left and right, all up in the body, then turning around, getting the older brother off from that, standing back up and going at the punches. And it was interesting. It's a point in one's life where they know that this is the breaking point. This is the point where I'm going to manage to overcome, my oppressor. I'm going to manage to make it clear that they cannot have me in a position of their choosing. So this was the important aspect of that. I feel at this point, and I hope everyone who had made a request, that includes the personnel, mystical and revolutionary as well, they are satisfied with what has been covered of Isaias. If there are others, then we will comply to those requests as best we can. And otherwise we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and make an attempt to conclude ESAS on the next videos. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.